Hey, muy buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And as always, muchísimas gracias to everyone for your guys' words, prayers, and your amazing support. From the corazón se los agradezco. Now, to get into the story in him, do please allow me to start off by apologizing for the last couple days, not being able to be in touch with everyone as I like to. But as you guys know, me being a dummy, I forgot my charger out here, and my phone was completely dead. But it's 3:40 something, and I'm back in the ranch. So you know, I said I was just gonna put something together for everyone real fast, and do expect me to start showing the love and respect that you guys show me back. First thing tomorrow, I'm gonna start getting into answering everybody's messages. But thank you. It's funny. Definitely, Guadalajara wasn't what I expected. There was a lot of in play for a lot of different angles, right? Which I will in a future touch, but man, I'll leave it for another day, right? So I haven't been able to touch with family yet from the main house because, like I said, it's real late. But tell you one thing: the minute you get back in Culiacan, you can feel the chaos, right? I don't know, it's just funny how you can feel the tension. It's, and then you start hearing the warfare here and there. But again, we'll see where everything's at tomorrow, right? Family didn't want to bother me while I was over there, and which I appreciate that. But anyways, allow me to get into the story. Today I'm going to touch on one of the reasons the newer members are being so difficult, at least when it came to them old members. There's many other reasons, as I've stated them before, but you know how favoritism is definitely one of them, right? And they all do it, but it seems to be a tool that's used a lot on the older Bealies, right? As favoritism, right? But anyways, I want to talk about Fly and Wedto from Southford in this one. As you guys know from my story, I know Wedto from the streets because around my area, which was Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Hillsborough, all that little area, Cotati, the county, right, of Sonoma, where I'm from. He was out there before I got busted already, trying to push down that um Emmett gospel, you could say, but it was more about a respect thing out there because there was no other members out there, right? As I said before, so of course it was met with not a warm welcoming, right? Because we were at, well, at least I could speak about my neighborhood, right? There's a lot of people like myself that were born and raised in Santa Rosa, right? As in Petaluma and XXX. So when we had an individual from Sanford, first off, not even from the town, come in and tell us how to do rules and regulations under somebody else and trying to impose all these things. Of course, we said, Chales, we understood the guidelines, right? As a sureño and who we fall under and all that, But to allow someone come in the neighborhood and they take the actions of the neighborhood is just nah. And this was well told to Wedto. You know, we're willing to, from our heart, whatever we desire to show love to the Pili, right? But for you to dictate who has my barrio, rules and regulations on my barrio, or anything like that, that ain't gonna happen. And you want to start off with a wrong foot, at least at this time in my neighborhood was what was said to him, right? And this is before you had a lot of neighborhoods that you hear in my town, right? So Weddle understood this and he backed off and of course, every church we had in the neighborhood we put something together and out of respect we send down the pipeline to Mosca, right? But the neighborhood that did get really deep into it was La Primera, 13 in Peraluma. And at the time we were real close with them, we went back and forth to Betas and SR and we tried to support each other and but we never inputted what one should do in each other's neighborhood. At the end of the day, that was amongst them when they got together and decided the angle they were gonna do, right? And I gotta say this is like a year before I got arrested, right? And again, I was still that young fool. All I thought was about game banging, honestly. The barrio, game banging, and making feria. So in reality, I used to hear it and just be like, I don't really give what goes on in Beta. And I think that's what the biggest problem is with game banging, right? We belong or fall under the same thing, on the streets, there's just no love there for one another, right? On the contrary. Anyways, within time we started seeing, before I got busted, I started seeing some funny stuff, like the homies had something going, and all of a sudden they wanted not just the respects, but a percentage of that. And, this is when Wedto got shot on the streets. The Vato pressed on the wrong one, and again, we weren't used to it, so there was one, two, three homies my age or a little bit older, right? Because La Primera's been there, you could say longer than my neighborhood, right? So there's older vatos. And what oppressed on them, and they didn't want to kill them. They just wanted to give them a little ponte en paz type of thing, right? And but it brought backlash, right? Because Mosca right away put a green on them in Wilmas. It wasn't able to be done in county jail because again there was not that much reach of them in the county, right? But anyways, they were getting hit, and it was actually the first time we heard of you know a barrio getting green light of ours, and them having to pay feria to get it off, right? Which it did get done. So a little bit afterwards, as you know, I caught a case and, I came back and got out on the streets fighting a case and I caught this double murders. And it's when I ended up in Quilmas, right? And in Quilmas, Raul was there. And as I stated before, he was under the weather, right? At first, trying to blend in. And then later on, he decided to come out to save a dummy skin, right? If you look at it from that angle, but also for the many things that were happening wrong, right? And the many implementations that were given there in San Quentin, and it was a big old chaos, right? Because again, it wasn't just my town; it was most of Northern California that it was trying to start blending in, right, with the rest of the camaradas in the rest of California, which you guys know before something gets sorted out and lined up correctly, there's a lot of negative, right? So you guys, from my backstories, know Wedto was there, and there was no love amongst us, right, for a lot of reasons, and especially because I ended up doing a pegada on his homeboy solo, right, and again, they looked at us like a lot of people do look, right, at Northern California homies, right? Excuse me, as less than, so he had that chip on his shoulder, and I had a different chip, and I let it be known, right? But at this time, I wasn't alone, right? I'm not gonna say I had the backings, but I had that go ahead, just do things in guidelines and everything, and circle it back around to have him slip, and then he could pull a juggler. I was being directed by Raul. Just allow him to choke himself, if you guys get what I'm trying to say. But I didn't have the opportunity, right? With time, I took my path and homeward parole. I see parole, he went MIA. For whatever reason, he went MIA on fly, and they couldn't find him for, I would say a year. And he was questioned, I mean, not questioned, asked for, and Fly was demanding to know because, by that time he got out, there was more of a reach out there, at least when it came to Sonoma County, right? So it was a lot more money. I guess dude at one point said, you know what, ya estoy cansado, I don't want to do this. And he did it the Winnie way, if you want to look at it like that, right? Which was he went and collected something for Fly, and then he just flew out, or like something just ate him, right? He was gone. If you guys remember good, Fly had a lot of, I'm not gonna say love because that's a strong word to use with this individual, right? But he had a lot of treasure for this guy, Wedto, because Wedto had given a sister to Fly, if you want to put it like that, right? In essence, he was Weto's cuñado, or Fly, or he was Weto's. However you want to look at it. Disculpen, I'm just right overstressed. But anyways, he eventually got put in the bad news list, in La Verde, not gonna lie, I took it as it's a prideful thing, to see dude already washed up because he caused a lot of hurt, at least in my city, right? But within 2 3 years, he got busted in San Rafael, right, for possession. No matter how good they always try to do, they always fall back to going out hunting for their veneno and eventually being a parolee, tecateando leads to going back to prison, right? Especially staying in the same area, but again, it was almost weren't in touch like that. When the individual got there to run his make, all that, that came later on. But anyways, so as he got busted, everybody was just waiting for dude to slip up to boogie on him, right? For a lot of reasons. Our neighborhood had ours, and LP had theirs, and Hubert had theirs, and you know, even San Rafael, wanted a piece of that. But the odd thing was that it went from being on the green light from Fly to Fly addressing the county from a different homie from SAC, right? That got busted there. That was on the Fly. Um, One older dude named Smiley, right, from SAC, and he was taking him off the list. Wedto had paid his way back, right? So to us, that was like, what the dude went off with your feria. We all understand he was on the streets. He didn't have a chance to lock it up. He's been in county 3 months though, and he's been slammed. He has not allowed classification to put him on GP. So in my books, he's PC'd up, right? And but there was an argument there, or amongst the Vatos that were talking in regards to this. I was just hearing it from camaradas, on the back and forth that was happening. And basically, he had paid everything back. He had some issues. He proven them issues. He had not only that, but paid it for his forgiveness. That's when I first noticed that money was going to trump everything. It wasn't out like it was now, but everything circled back around. The Vato paid what he took, paid extra to take all the negative away from him, and gave some Holly. I was like, man, so that him sticking everybody with false fusser guy, because he did continue using Homeboy's name and wherever he could push it to get Feria, so all them lying to come at us, him locking it up. There was no black and white, him being locked up like Peseta, right? But like my homeboy Rucho said, it was just, if you look at it, the minute Fly circle that kite around, he was untouchable. And all of a sudden, committee let him out the hole, right? And the funny part is this fool, when we need out, and he was pushing the agenda again with Fly's blessings. Because it was like, if nothing happened, just because Fly got what he wanted. And just, this is just a small little look, right, of what Fly was. Because Wedto and Fly were working in, and you could say the area where I'm from. But if you really analyze Fly's BS, he was in so many counties, right? Just being in LA County alone, he made a lot of calls like this to the point where a lot of people knew people had R's on his jacket, had been PC'd up, but all of a sudden there was a way to come back, which was paying you forgiveness. You know, that's something that, at least for me, I never heard of it. You PC'd up, it didn't matter if you told or not. At the end of the day, you told her, who does I fear for my safety? I have to punch, right? All of a sudden you come back out and you got them things between your leg again and your mouth, right? Talking out your neck like you're this and that, when in reality everybody knows you're soft, just hiding behind somebody's skirt. But you know, a lot of homies from the area did test it out, but they did it wrong. They should have just not just suited and booted, but armed themselves too, and handle business on Wedto, not just by putting hands on them, but pulling his wig, right? But they didn't. It's just put hands on them, and it cost them their career. So it's that simple. Just everyone think, or they ain't looking, this is that. A lot of people talk about righteousness, camarada esto, campolero. You got this type of individuals like Fly, greedy, a dope fiend, because you can't call him Tecato. He's a dope fiend. He would do anything for feria, for dope, and that includes washing up a lot of good people. Just the man that's gonna put that in his pocket, in his vein, it's gonna be worth more than a solid solado. A person that knows how to do something correctly as a whole, that has no meaning. If people look at how things are, that's why I say, be smart. Everything's out there right now. Now my question is, to end this video, first and foremost, as the pinpoint, right? Don't go in there and thinking, I say it a lot, in my videos, that nothing you do is gonna have some meaning. There's gonna be a lot that's gonna have an R, that has been a snitch, that has a long pocket. They could touch one of these individuals and all of a sudden he's worth more than you. The only place you guys can give yourself value as others is in your neighborhood if you do the proper steps to do so. Once you hit the pinta, it's all out the window, it's all a myth. But, when I want to end this up is with a question, right? Tell me now that, I heard it from a couple, not gonna even say if they're camarada, they're norteños, but they're people there right now. They don't say it in public. In public, it's part of the cause. Keep pushing, keep putting steel in things, right? But behind the scenes with people they trust, they don't want to go back to the shoe. No more phone. I'm not gonna say no more dope, because that's a lie, right? But at least movement, the way they have it, contact visits, because they're gonna reopen the shoes. They start seeing all the modified programs happening. So tell me, what's gonna be the new misled lie that's gonna get pushed? Because they done a lot of damage this time they're out when it came to to the round flag, if you want to say it like that, right? But I just want to know everyone's thoughts. Anyways, it's late, I need to get some rest. Just wanted my niece to get this out to you guys tomorrow. I would also be, like I mentioned, responding the way I should have, right? Again, disculpen. And hope everybody has a great night. As always, do please, excuse me, stay true to yourself and honor to your loved ones. God bless. Muy buenas noches.